sound like Gucci cooperate. To sound like the victim. Gucci was a victim and gave his testimony. Come on over here with me, Gucci. It's all right. It's all right to go and be civilian. Yeah.
Gucci Mane came back swinging on his latest release, Crash Dummy, where he addressed the Pooh Shiesty situation head on, tackling those cooperation claims and everything else. DJ Academics weighed in, saying he originally figured Gucci would keep his mouth shut when it came to federal authorities. Instead, what dropped ended up being one big admission according to him, and he even challenged Charleston White to level up his game when it comes to talking.
Remember I said Gucci ain't gonna make a statement? This is a statement right here. Yo, it's a statement right here. Yo, I swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Yo, I'm gonna keep it a beat with you. Yo, Charleston White gotta step his snitching game. Charleston White ain't doing this over a beat with an 808 with Zaytoven. Charleston White just doing this on Instagram in his drawer.
Gucci Mane went straight at Pooh Shiesty with some pointed lines in the track, laying it out clear when he spit about how Pooh Shiesty walked into the situation like a crash dummy and somehow still ended up under his label after everything went down. The Atlanta legend made it plain that what he thought would be a standard business discussion turned into something completely different, an ambush where Pooh Shiesty allegedly tried forcing him to sign over his release. This whole scenario gets messier when you realize the power dynamic that was supposed to exist between them got flipped upside down that day. One response that went viral put Gucci on blast, questioning why he'd even make a record confirming the robbery, instead of moving how the streets expect you to move. The comment basically said he should have retrieved what belonged to him the old-fashioned way, rather than going the route he chose. But here's where it gets interesting. Gucci really didn't have much choice after what came out in federal court earlier that day. FBI agent Pamela Hansen took the stand and confirmed under oath that Gucci Mane had given Dallas PD a full account of what transpired during that January 10th, 2026 incident at the North Dallas studio. The courtroom got tense when Pooh Shiesty pressed his head against the wall while his leg bounced uncontrollably as attorney Bradford Cohen pressed agent Hansen about the allegations, specifically about Gucci Mane getting shoved onto a couch with weapons drawn on him. According to Hansen's testimony, Gucci Mane told his security team, who happened to be former Detroit police officers, that they were severely outnumbered in that moment. Pooh Shiesty visibly reacted, shaking his head when the agent revealed that Gucci Mane instructed his security to lower their weapons. Once it became crystal clear that Gucci had cooperated with law enforcement, people who were present in that courtroom said Pooh Shiesty's body language told the whole story, beyond just the head shaking. He reportedly rolled his eyes hard and kept rubbing his face, clearly stressed about what Gucci disclosed to federal authorities. That's when Charleston White jumped in, co-signing Gucci's decision to cooperate.
Sound like Gucci cooperate. To sound like the victim. Gucci was a victim.
What makes this entire situation fascinating is how it exposes the collision between street politics and actual legal consequences. In today's era, the game has completely changed from what it used to be. Artists are caught between maintaining their street credibility and protecting themselves legally, and those two worlds rarely align anymore. Gucci's in a position where staying silent could have meant more legal exposure, but speaking up means facing backlash from people who still operate by old codes. The reality is, federal cases don't care about street rules, and when you're facing serious time, that mathematics changes real quick. Plus, considering Gucci's built an empire worth millions over decades, you have to question what he realistically had to gain by handling it any other way. The streets might say one thing, but courtrooms operate on facts and testimony, not reputation and posturing. This whole dynamic shows how complicated the music industry has become when legal systems intersect with hip-hop culture. Right as the hearing wrapped up, Pooh Shiesty had another moment worth noting. Someone who was positioned directly behind him in the courtroom shared online what went down in those final minutes before the judge made their decision. Pooh Shiesty quietly told his people he was straight, giving his family members seated in the back gallery a confident head nod, while his lawyer, Bradford Cohen, delivered the closing argument for that day's proceedings. To really grasp what Gucci Mane laid out in his account to authorities, you need the full picture of what allegedly happened. Reports stated that Pooh Shiesty and Big 30 ran up on Gucci Mane in Dallas. Based on what the Department of Justice put forward, Pooh Shiesty aimed a gun at Gucci Mane and pressured him into signing away his contract with 1017 Records, while Big 30 posted up at the exit to make sure Gucci couldn't bounce. The feds hit 9 individuals from Memphis with charges connected to this, And what's wild is the jewelry that got taken started popping up all over social media just hours after it went down. Now here's where things get really complicated for everyone involved. The fact that stolen property showed up on social media that quickly demonstrates either incredible boldness or
serious lack of awareness about how federal investigations work in the digital age. Law enforcement screenshots everything, and when you're dealing with a high-profile victim like Gucci Mane, the FBI isn't playing around. They're going to track every chain, every watch, every piece that got flashed online. What's particularly interesting about Pooh Shiesty's demeanor in court is the contrast between his confidence, telling his family he's straight, and the visible stress he showed when Gucci's cooperation became public knowledge. That tells you he might have genuinely believed Gucci wouldn't go the official route with this. Maybe he thought their industry relationship or street politics would keep things from reaching federal court, but that calculation clearly missed the mark. The involvement of Big 30 adds another layer, because now you've got multiple major artists from Memphis potentially facing serious federal time over what appears to have been an impulsive move. When you factor out in that 9 people total got indicted, this wasn't some small operation. This was a whole crew that allegedly participated in or had knowledge of what went down. Federal conspiracy charges spread wide, and everyone connected to the incident suddenly has exposure. The Department of Justice doesn't play when it comes to these cases. They build airtight prosecutions with multiple witnesses, physical evidence, digital trails, and testimony. The moment that jewelry hit social media, it became exhibit material. Every post, every story, every tag became part of the government's case. In the modern era, criminals essentially document their own crimes for prosecutors, which makes defending these cases exponentially harder than it would have been even 10 years ago. Once this entire story spread across every platform and news outlet, Woody decided to share his perspective on everything that unfolded.
Y'all, please help me. I really need help. Pooh Shiesty did all that time in jail, in the feds. Pooh Shiesty came home, y'all, and made a first day out. They sent him right back to jail. Pride and ego is our main enemy.
But what came out later made it crystal clear that Gucci Mane had a direct hand in how these arrests went down. According to reports, someone close to the situation told DJ Academics that after Gucci Mane cooperated with law enforcement about Pooh Shiesty, he apparently had some regrets about one specific person caught up in it, Lontrell Williams Sr., Pooh Shiesty's father. The source claimed Gucci Mane expressed that he believed the father got pressured into participating and wasn't trying to see him face time behind bars. But by that point, the wheels were already in motion, and there wasn't anything Gucci could do to pull it back.
Everybody was peer pressure, for what I'm hearing, it was the daddy, Lontrell, when the situation happened, Gucci allegedly looked up at the daddy, and the daddy was like, show some type of sympathy and empathy for Gucci.
This information adds a completely different angle to everything, because it shows Gucci Mane wasn't just talking to the feds without thinking about who'd get caught up. The fact that he allegedly felt some type of way specifically about the father means he understood that not everybody involved was on the same level of wrong. Maybe Lontrell Williams Sr. was just riding for his son and ended up in way deeper than he should have been. Or the family
situation put him in a spot where he couldn't really say no. Either way, once you start giving statements to federal authorities, you lose control over how far it reaches or who gets wrapped up in it. The sympathy Gucci supposedly had for the father shows how messy things get when families are involved. It's never just black and white with clear good guys and bad guys. But feeling bad doesn't stop the charges from coming, and federal prosecutors don't care about somebody's intentions when they're building their case. Once you're mentioned in that cooperation, the legal process takes over, no matter what anyone personally feels about it. This whole development caught the attention of Pooh Shiesty's mother, and she had plenty to say about her ex-husband getting arrested alongside their son.
He protected him, he kept him humble, he kept him 100, and kept away from around some suckers and pluckers. I prayed for them, man, you look so good.
That's when the whole situation flipped on Gucci. People started backing Pooh Shiesty hard because when you break it down, Gucci told on an artist that was literally under his own label. DJ Academics came through with some info that caught everybody off guard. Turns out Gucci Mane's been moving around with off-duty police as his protection for years, and nobody knew. Soon as that detail hit the streets, folks started questioning why he'd even put pen to paper with rappers living that life. when he's surrounded by actual law enforcement.
The idea that some of y'all trying to give Gucci an out is like, nah, it's because it's not like they fooled him and it was an undercover cop. That's what people keep saying, undercover. No, he hired a policeman. He hired a policeman. Wasn't undercover. Wasn't a guy acting like he was security. No, he hired the cops. And a crime happened in the presence of the cops.
This spread everywhere online. DJ Vlad stepped in with his take after running it by some people connected to the whole Pooh Shiesty and Gucci situation. What he kept getting told was that there's actually no physical proof of a robbery going down, which means everything's gonna rest on whether Gucci gets on that stand and says Pooh Shiesty and them ran his pockets. Now, check this out. This is where it gets real interesting. If Gucci tells a court nothing went down, then he can't turn around and say he was forced to sign away Pooh Shiesty's contract, which means every dollar Pooh Shiesty makes from here on out won't touch Gucci's pockets at all.
But flip it the other way. If Gucci does get up there and point the finger at Pooh Shiesty, that contract he signed under pressure gets tossed in the trash, and Gucci keeps cashing checks off his artist. The cost though? Everybody's gonna brand him exactly what they're already calling him now. So really, Gucci's stuck choosing between his bread and his name in these streets. But judging by how he's moving on his latest track, it's looking like Gucci's ready to sit in that witness chair and speak on Pooh Shiesty. He's out here in his music saying Pooh Shiesty's still locked into 1017, and he's already spelled out what happened for the whole world to hear. Man basically told on himself and the whole situation in the song. Think about the position Gucci put himself in though. He dropped a whole track addressing it, which means he's committed to this narrative now. You can't rap about something happening and then get on the stand and say it didn't. That's perjury. And the feds will hit you with that quick. So by even making Crash Dummy, Gucci basically locked himself into testifying if this case goes to trial. He painted himself into a corner where backing out ain't really an option no more. What's wild is how this plays out financially. Pooh Shiesty was bringing in serious money for 1017 before all this went down. His music was charting, his features were in demand, and he had a whole wave going. If that release contract stands, Gucci loses out on all future earnings from one of his biggest artists. We're talking potentially millions over the course of Pooh Shiesty's career. That's a heavy loss for any label, even one as established as 1017. But here's what people ain't fully considering. Gucci's reputation was already complicated in the streets. He's been in the game long enough that he's had situations before, and his standing has shifted over the years as he went more mainstream and corporate. Some folks already viewed him different once he cleaned up, got married, and started moving more like a businessman than a street dude. So maybe in his mind, his street credibility was already compromised enough that protecting his money made more sense than protecting an image that was already shifting anyway. The other angle is pride. Getting robbed by your own artist is different from any other type of robbery. That's disrespect on a whole different level. It's saying you don't respect the person who put you on, gave you a platform, and helped you make millions. For someone like Gucci, who built an empire and put on countless artists over the years, having one of them violate like that probably stung more than the actual jewelry and money taken. So testifying might not just be about the contract. It might be about principle and sending a message that you can't play him like that regardless of the street politics involved. Still, the timing of everything is suspect to a lot of people. The fact that he dropped a song about it right when court proceedings are happening looks calculated. It's almost like he's trying to control the narrative publicly before the legal narrative gets out there. By putting his version in the track first, he gets to frame how people see it before testimony and evidence come out in court. That's a PR move as much as it is a musical one. A TikTok lawyer, though, went on to explain this a bit deeper, though.
If Gucci does not testify, the question of is Pooh cooked comes down to 2 paragraphs in the complaint plus 1 picture. They say Big 30 barricades the door to the studio. They say that the security guards try to barge in, and when the security guards barge in, they get a peek and they see that they're outnumbered by the armed target suspects. It does not say that they are outnumbered by an armed Pooh Shiesty. Instead, they lump Pooh Shiesty in with the whole group of target suspects, suggesting that the security guards only saw other people, not Pooh with the later, where it's alleged that he's allegedly holding it to the back of the one of the business people. And so, if there's anybody here other than Gucci who seems like they could put Pooh away, it's going to be one of the business guys.
What's crazy is where this leaves Gucci moving forward in the culture. His standing in the streets is basically done after this, no matter how you slice it. You can't testify against your own artist in a federal case and expect the rap game to just move past that. Artists who were thinking about signing to 1017 are gonna have second thoughts now. Why would you put your career in the hands of somebody who might turn state's witness if things go left? That trust is gone, and in hip-hop, trust and loyalty mean everything when you're choosing who to rock with. The ripple effects go beyond just Gucci's personal reputation too. This sets a precedent for how label disputes and street situations get handled going forward. If a major label boss can cooperate with feds against their own artists and the industry just accepts it, that changes the whole dynamic of these relationships. Artists are gonna start putting different clauses in contracts, maybe even requiring NDAs about certain situations, or avoiding labels run by people who move like this altogether. For Pooh Shiesty, the outcome looking real grim right now. Federal cases already have a conviction rate over 90%. And when you add in cooperating witnesses, physical evidence from social media, and multiple co-defendants who might flip, his chances ain't looking good at all. The feds don't play. They stack charges to where even if you beat some, you're still facing decades. With 9 people indicted, there's a high chance somebody's gonna take a deal and testify to save themselves. That's just how federal conspiracies work. Robbery charges are serious on their own, but when you add firearms and forcing someone to sign contracts under duress, you're looking at kidnapping charges, extortion, and weapons enhancements. Each one of those carries mandatory minimums that stack on top of each other. The way federal sentencing guidelines work, Pooh Shiesty could realistically be looking at life or something close to it if convicted on all counts. And with Gucci seemingly ready to testify, the prosecution's case just got a whole lot stronger. The saddest part is, Pooh Shiesty had real momentum before all this. His music was connecting, he had a lane, and the future looked bright. Now he's sitting in federal custody watching his career and freedom slip away while his former label boss prepares to take the stand against him. His pops is caught up in it too, which adds family trauma on top of everything else. This whole situation is a perfect example of how quick everything can fall apart when emotions override logic and people move without thinking about consequences.
Barely any time passed. That's how long it took for Fojiano's situation to go from a comeback story to a nightmare. 5 years locked up, 5 years of silence, grinding through a sentence that would have broken most people. He came home with momentum, with people in his corner, with a real shot at picking up where he left off. And somehow within days, all of that evaporated. A profile photo swap, a caption that didn't need any explanation. Anyone paying attention knew exactly what the message meant and exactly who it was meant for. That was enough. Doors swung back shut. Montgomery re-entry facility. Federal records surfaced online and ran across every platform almost instantly. The comment sections, the podcasts, the opinion holders, everybody had something to say, and most of the conversation kept circling back to one figure, the architect behind the label that put Fojiano on. The same person Fojiano had just taken a very public shot at online. People started pointing at that connection like it explained everything, whether it does or doesn't. What's undeniable is that Fojiano went from having his whole future ahead of him to sitting back in a facility. And it happened faster than most people can process. That's the part that keeps the internet talking. The narrative circulating everywhere is clear. If people are saying Gucci Mane made a call, that Fojiano stepped out, aligned himself publicly in the ongoing situation with his former label mate, and got pulled right back off the street shortly after. And this wasn't isolated either. 2 1017 artists ended up back in custody within a short window, and both of them had visible friction with the same person. You can call that timing, you can call that coincidence, but what the streets are calling it is somebody picking up the phone and pointing a finger at their former signee before he could start talking about what really happened behind closed doors at 1017. Fojiano barely had a moment to re-establish himself. The second he started making noise online, pointing at the label, pointing at the man who signed him, it was over. Voices from across the rap world came forward without much hesitation, and all landed on the same conclusion. And now Fojiano is back in a facility while the man he had the issue with continues moving through life completely unbothered. That's the surface, but to understand this you have to go back to where it actually started. Nothing about Fojiano's story landed here randomly. This has been building for a long time. born Wami Khalil Brown out of Greensboro, Georgia, July 4th, 1993, Independence Day. There's something almost heavy about that when you look at the reality of his life. He came up the hard way, caught a burglary charge in 2013, did 3 years in state prison and came home locked in on making music his exit. That energy showed up in 2020 when he put out a record called Molly. The song spread fast, landed a major remix feature, and real organic momentum started building around him. That's when Gucci Mane came calling. By November 2020, Fojiano had a debut project out through 1017, charting on Billboard's Heat Seekers, and positioned as the new face coming out of that camp. Everything looked like it was moving in the right direction. The momentum didn't get a full month. December 2020, a federal gun charge came down out of Memphis. Convicted felon in possession of a firearm. He was given bond, told to stay in Georgia, ordered to wear an ankle monitor. He didn't honor any of it, cut the monitor, went off the grid for 3 months, and federal agents finally caught up with him in March 2021. May 2021, the sentence came, 5 years federal. While Fojiano sat inside, 1017 went through a significant shakeup. Gucci Mane cleared nearly the entire roster in late 2024, releasing artist after artist, and except Fojiano and one other name still incarcerated, both locked up, both generating nothing for the label. And that specific decision is what people couldn't let go of. Why hold on to the 2 artists who can't move, can't record, can't perform? The answer the streets kept arriving at was control. An artist behind bars, depending on label support just to get through the week, doesn't have the footing to speak freely or push back. That's not a roster situation, that's leverage, and it went further than that. Fojiano's people were saying publicly that not a single dollar of support came through during his entire sentence. No financial assistance, nothing to speak of. 5 years of that silence. January 2026, out of Dallas, Texas, Pooh Shiesty had just finished his bid and was barely back before things escalated dramatically. According to a federal criminal complaint, he allegedly pulled up to a studio with a group of men, and what went down in that room had nothing to do with recording. Gucci Mane and 2 associates were allegedly held at gunpoint, weapons drawn, people physically handled, and forced to sign a contract release before being robbed of jewelry, watches, and cash. That's what the federal document outlines. That's what prosecutors put on record. And then the feds moved fast. All 9 people allegedly present that night were charged within weeks. The unsealed complaint read like someone who was in that room sat across from prosecutors and walked them through the entire night, start to finish. Who was there, what was said, who organized what, who did what to who. Every detail accounted for, every person named. And the only individual present with full knowledge of everything that happened who walked away without a single charge was Gucci Mane. People started doing the math in real time. No Jumpers Adam 22 went on record saying sources confirmed the robbery situation was real, adding more fuel to what was already a wildfire online. The internet split immediately. Half the conversation was defending Gucci based on his history, pointing to his battles dating back to the Young Jeezy era, his reputation built over decades, his street credibility. The other half pointed to a pattern, the 2005 murder case, court documents from years back referencing Atlanta rivals, and the noticeable shift in who Gucci became after his last release. 2 different versions of the same man, and people were choosing which one they believed. Then Gucci dropped a record right in the middle of all this. Crash Dummy came out shortly after Pooh Shiesty's arrest, and the bars on that track are what really sent things over the edge. He referenced someone going out recklessly, noted that person was still under contract with him, and then made a point about walking into a room and sensing the pressure, while the same people appeared loyal on the surface and were allegedly plotting in private. Stop right there. In a creative context, that reads like a diss. In a legal context, with an active federal case connected to the exact situation being referenced, that reads like someone building a narrative. The streets weren't calling it poetry, they were calling it a witness statement with a drum pattern behind it. Something laying out events for whatever ears happened to be listening, including anyone sitting in a jury box. The response from across the industry came quickly. Uncle Murda got on his platform and said it directly, that you can't spend 2 decades being a certain type of person and then start sounding like someone who has no relationship with those streets anymore. He said something shifted, and he felt for the people who moved with Gucci based on trust. That's not a gossip page saying that. That carries weight coming from where it came from. 50 Cent did what 50 Cent does, engaged with every update, shared every development, made clear he was entertained by the full situation. A man who had public friction with Gucci going back years finally had every reason to say he told people. Freddie Gibbs weighed in on the actual record itself, dismissing the bars and suggesting the whole thing read less like a diss and more like documentation, like a man building something on wax to support something happening in a courtroom. And the central question that nobody could get past: how do 9 people get hit with federal charges within a month of one incident? Federal investigations don't move that fast on their own. That timeline only makes sense if someone who was there handed the whole story over and made the government's job as easy as possible. That's what the streets kept landing on. And with Fojiano back in a facility shortly after publicly taking his own shots at the same man, people weren't treating any of this as separate stories anymore. They were treating it as a pattern. April 21st, 2026, 5 years of federal time done. Fojiano walked through those doors and the internet lit up immediately. First photo hit, grills gleaming, energy high, a caption basically announcing the cafeteria era was officially closed. That image traveled everywhere within the hour. People were genuinely happy for him, comments, reposts, the whole wave of support you'd expect for somebody finally getting their life back after half a decade gone. 48 hours later, the celebration was over. Someone allegedly close to his circle let a private conversation slip into public hands. And what was in those messages reframed everything. Fojiano, according to that source, had zero intention of continuing any relationship with Gucci Mane. And the reason wasn't complicated. 5 years in a federal institution and not a single dollar of support ever arrived from the label that had his name on a contract. Nothing. Not once. And separately, Fojiano had already formed an opinion about Crash Dummy, the record Gucci dropped in the middle of all the chaos surrounding Pooh Shiesty's arrest. Fojiano's word for it, according to those messages, was snitching. Not a bad song, not a weak record. Snitching. A man less than a week removed from prison, still technically bound to that label, was privately telling people the boss had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. 4 days after coming home, he made it visual. The profile photo changed, and what he replaced it with sent a very specific message to anyone paying attention. Pooh Shiesty's most recent booking photo, the one from Dallas, the federal case photo tied directly to the incident involving Gucci Mane. He put that image on his page and left it there for the world to see. His fans saw it. Industry people saw it. His probation officer's world saw it. The next day he went further. He reshared a post built entirely around the concept of doing time with your integrity unbroken. No cooperation, no compromise, loyalty as an absolute standard regardless of what the system throws at you. He added his own words to it, something to the effect of that loyalty extending beyond death itself. That's not social media activity. That's a man who just survived 5 years of federal custody announcing to the entire internet that he knows who the real ones are and who they aren't. And Gucci Mane was firmly in the second category as far as Fojiano was concerned. Then May comes around, not even a full 3 weeks since his release. Screenshots of his federal inmate records start appearing on timelines. Montgomery Residential Re-Entry Facility, his name attached to it. Fojiano was back in custody. The explanation that emerged was that he traveled to Georgia, back to Greensboro, back home to see his children, kids he hadn't been physically present for in 5 years. Photos from that visit apparently made their way online and somehow reached the attention of his probation situation. No new charges, no violence, no fleeing. A father gonna see his children. That's what reportedly triggered his return to a facility. Now walk through what that sequence actually looks like laid out straight. He gets out. Within 24 hours, the word spreads that he's publicly condemning both the financial abandonment and the record that half of hip-hop was already calling a cooperation anthem. Days later, his profile is another man's federal mugshot, a man whose case directly involves his label head. The following day, he's posting about loyalty codes and calling out rats in language that leaves no interpretation available. And then, in the weeks that follow, a routine family visit gets flagged, and instead of a phone call from a PO, he ends up back in a halfway house almost immediately. Federal supervision doesn't work the way people sometimes imagine it does. These officers are carrying dozens upon dozens of cases. They are not refreshing Instagram feeds looking for travel content from rappers. For something to get noticed, something has to bring it to someone's attention. A tip, a notification, someone picking up a phone or sending a message to the right person, and the streets have been asking the same question on repeat ever since this went public. Who in this entire situation had every possible reason to want Fojiano off the street at precisely that moment? Who had already demonstrated familiarity with how federal systems operate based on the Pooh Shiesty case timeline? Who had the network, the resources, the legal infrastructure to even know what terms Fojiano was operating under after release? The answer the streets keep landing on is obvious, and it connects directly to everything that came before it. There's also a layer to Fojiano's original sentence that most people never fully heard about. A legal advocacy organization called the Remedy Project put out a detailed investigation into his case while he was still incarcerated. What they documented was alarming. The Bureau of Prisons had been sitting on more than 18 months of sentence credit that a federal judge had specifically ordered applied to his time. Ordered by a judge, and for 7 months straight, Fojiano tried to fight it from the inside. He went through every channel available to him: case managers, unit counselors, the warden, regional bureau offices. Every single door closed, forms went unsigned, his legal mail was open before it reached him. Correspondence between him and his attorneys was copied, delayed, interfered with. Sit with that for a second. Somebody with deep enough reach inside the federal prison system to ensure that one specific inmate's paperwork never moves, that his communications with lawyers get intercepted, that over a year of credited time stays buried despite a judge's ruling. That's not a bureaucratic mistake. Bureaucratic mistakes don't apply uniformly across that many levels of the system simultaneously. That's pressure being applied from somewhere with access. And through all of that, every blocked form, every open letter, every month of extra time served that legally shouldn't have been. Fojiano didn't adjust his position. He came out the same way he went in. Loyal to the people he considered real, vocal about the people he didn't. He walked through those prison doors pointing directly at what he believed was a rat and daring the consequences. He got less than 3 weeks of freedom before those consequences apparently arrived. That's not misfortune. That's not a man making poor decisions. That looks like a system that had already decided how his story was going to go, and it looks like someone outside that system helping it along. Pooh Shiesty built one of the most talked about come-ups out of Memphis in recent memory, and right now he's reportedly in critical condition after getting caught slipping by Crips members inside a federal prison. And trust, this situation runs a lot deeper than the headline, and we're not talking about some random beef that escalated. This is about loyalty, street politics, and the brutal reality of what happens when you're a known rapper behind federal walls thinking your reputation is going to keep you safe. It won't. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll understand exactly what went down, why it happened, and why this is honestly one of the craziest stories to surface from the rap world in a long time. But real quick, before we get into all of that, let me make sure everyone's working with the same information, because if you don't fully know who Pooh Shiesty is and where he comes from, the weight of this story isn't gonna hit, right? Pooh Shiesty, born Lontrell Donnell Williams Jr., came up out of Memphis, Tennessee. He was barely 20 years old when the streets and the industry both started taking notice at the same time. While most people his age were still trying to figure life out, he was already moving in circles that most rappers spend years trying to break into. He linked with Gucci Mane and found a home at 1017 Records, and from there, things took off fast. He was on a trajectory that didn't look like it was slowing down for anybody, and then everything stopped. In October 2021, Pooh Shiesty took a guilty plea on a federal conspiracy to commit robbery charge. The whole thing traced back to a 2020 incident at a hotel out in Bay Harbor Islands, Florida, where he and a few associates allegedly robbed 2 men. One of those men got shot in the process, and that's where it stopped being just a street situation and became a federal one. Once the feds get a hold of something, the entire dynamic changes. In broader Collateral, and Pooh Shiesty found that out firsthand. By August 2022, the sentence came down 5 years and 3 months in federal prison. And here's the part people don't always fully understand about the federal system. There's no real early release the way state prison works. You're expected to serve the overwhelming majority of what the judge hands you. So when they said 5 years and 3 months, they pretty much meant 5 years and 3 months. Like, they placed him in a low security federal correctional institution, and for a second that detail probably felt like a small win. Low security at least is not the worst case scenario. That comfort didn't last long, because right around here is where this story stops being just another rapper goes to prison tale and becomes something that's hard to shake once you hear it. Rumors and reports started leaking out that things inside were not going well for him. Now look, nobody walks into federal prison expecting a smooth experience, that's understood, but the layer underneath that is what makes this different. Pooh Shiesty isn't an anonymous face in the system. He's someone with a massive public profile, real money, and a name that carries weight on the outside. Most people would assume that counts for something, that maybe the recognition alone creates a buffer, buy some respect, keeps certain situations from ever developing. Federal prison doesn't work that way. The rules in there are completely separate from anything happening beyond those walls. Your streaming numbers, your following, none of that translates. Like, what actually matters inside is your roots, your affiliations, and whether the people around you believe you'll stand your ground when it gets real. Fame doesn't earn you protection in that environment. It hands you a target. Because now you're not just another inmate, you're an opportunity. Somebody, another person can make a point out of. That's a genuinely precarious place to be. So here's what's actually being reported, because the misinformation spreading around this has been wild. Sources indicate the altercation Pooh Shiesty was caught up in wasn't spontaneous or personal, it was coordinated. Multiple individuals connected to the same prison crew targeted Pooh Shiesty allegedly. The reports that came out about what Pooh Shiesty actually went through inside that facility were enough to stop people mid-scroll. Details started circulating about the extent of what happened to him and certain specifics, including losing a tooth in Oandan. The process were enough to send the story completely viral. But beyond the surface level details, the fact that critical condition was being thrown around tells you this wasn't minor. People who knew him, people who followed him, everybody had genuine concern about where things stood with his health. That's a heavy situation no matter how you look at it. Now, to actually understand the full picture here, you need some background on how crew dynamics function inside federal facilities, because without it, the reasoning behind all of this doesn't quite land. Memphis, where Pooh Shiesty is from, has a street culture that grew on its own roots. It doesn't mirror Los Angeles, it doesn't mirror Chicago or Compton or South Central or New York City. Memphis developed its own thing independently, but the moment an artist from there reaches a national platform, people on the outside start drawing their own conclusions about affiliations, whether those conclusions are accurate or not. Pooh Shiesty has been connected through his inner circle to a particular set of loyalties, and that association doesn't stay behind when you walk into a federal institution. And that's the piece that matters most here. Federal facilities pull people in from all corners of the country, all carrying their own histories and allegiances into the same space. Someone walking in with known ties to one crew and landing in a facility where a competing crew holds weight. That's not a situation that tends to stay quiet for long. None of what happened to Pooh Shiesty came out of nowhere. Within the context of how things actually function inside federal facilities, this kind of outcome was less of a surprise and more of an unavoidable collision waiting to happen. The politics and the loyalties that exist on the outside don't dissolve the moment someone walks through those doors. They follow you in, and this brings up something a lot of people have been genuinely wrestling with. Why hasn't he just moved into protective custody? For anyone unfamiliar, protective custody is essentially a separate housing situation where someone who's considered at risk gets pulled out of general population and kept away from potential threats. On paper, it sounds straightforward. Someone's in danger, you remove them from the situation, problem handled. But the reality inside prison culture is way more complicated than that. Requesting protective custody carries a stigma that is difficult to overstate. In that environment, making that move is widely interpreted as publicly admitting you can't hold your own out in general population. It signals vulnerability in a place where vulnerability is currency and not the good kind. And here's the part that makes this even messier. That label doesn't just live inside the facility. It follows you back out into the world. People talk, word travels, and for someone whose entire identity has been built around authenticity and credibility, having it known that he requested protection would undercut everything he's ever put his name on. So the position Pooh Shiesty is stuck in right now is genuinely difficult to sit with. Seeking safety costs him the reputation that his whole career stands on. Not seeking it keeps him exposed to real physical danger. There's no clean answer on either side of that, and honestly, that might be the most sobering part of this entire situation. Let's get into what the day-to-day actually looks like for Pooh Shiesty inside, because most people's mental image of what prison is like for a celebrity is based on movies and television, and the real version of that picture looks nothing like what Hollywood puts out. There are no special arrangements, no upgraded accommodations, no preferential treatment handed out because of who he is on the outside. Low-security federal facilities typically run on a dormitory setup. Open space, rows of bunks, minimal privacy, and a constantly rotating mix of people from completely different worlds, all compressed into the same living quarters. Different backgrounds, different regions, different allegiances, all sharing the same confined space around the clock. Now, some people figure that at least the music gives him some common ground, something to connect over, a reason for people to show him a certain level of respect, and there's some truth to that. Name recognition does open certain conversations. Some people genuinely appreciate what he's built creatively, but that same visibility works against him just as often as it works in his favor, because for every person who respects the art, there's someone else who sees a well-known face as an invitation to see what he's actually made of. Someone who wants to find out whether the person matches the image. Someone who views him as an opportunity rather than a peer. And then there's the money angle, which adds another layer entirely. It's widely understood that someone with Pooh Shiesty's resources can have funds sent to his commissary account from people on the outside. That kind of financial access, even indirect, paints a target on your back in an environment where people are always calculating what they can get from those around them. And that financial dynamic creates a whole ecosystem of pressure that doesn't let up. People on the outside might assume that having money available makes the situation more manageable, more comfortable somehow, but inside those walls it works almost in reverse. The more people believe you have access to resources, the more you become someone worth targeting, whether that's through manipulation, intimidation, or outright taking. The moment people peg you as someone with something to lose, you've got a problem that money itself can't actually solve. What makes Pooh Shiesty's situation particularly complicated is that he's not just navigating the standard difficulties of federal incarceration. He walked in there already carrying a national profile, already attached to certain associations, and already representing something specific to different groups of people inside. Every one of those factors layered on top of each other in an environment that already functions on a hair trigger, and the people around him in that facility aren't watching from a distance out of admiration. They're sizing things up the same way they would with anyone else. The only difference is they already know exactly who he is before he opens his mouth. There's also a persistent conversation happening outside those walls about whether his legal situation was handled the way it should have been. A lot of people who followed this case closely have strong opinions about the sentence itself and whether 5 years and 3 months was proportionate given the circumstances. The federal system operates with mandatory minimums and sentencing guidelines that leave very little room for nuance, and when those guidelines get applied to a 21-year-old whose career had barely gotten off the ground, the outcome can feel jarring regardless of what your personal stance on the underlying situation is. Some people look at that sentence and see a system doing exactly what it's designed to do. Other people look at the same numbers and see a young man's entire trajectory getting derailed at the exact moment he was finding his footing. The debate doesn't have a clean resolution, and people on both sides of it have been vocal. What tends to get lost in those conversations, though, is the human element underneath all the legal language. Pooh Shiesty was 20 years old when everything started falling apart for him legally. That's an age where most people are still making decisions they'll look back on and cringe at, still operating without the kind of perspective that only time can build. The difference is that most people don't have federal prosecutors watching when they make those calls. The question that a lot of people in his corner keep coming back to is whether the full weight of the federal system needed to land on someone that young, at that stage of his life, at that particular moment, and there's no objective answer to that. It depends entirely on what you believe the purpose of that system actually is. His legal team made noise at various points about the circumstances surrounding the case, about the details of what actually transpired at that hotel in Bay Harbor Islands, Florida, and about whether the outcome reflected an accurate reading of his level of involvement. None of that noise changed the final number. 5 years and 3 months, federal time, no real mechanism for early release. The gavel came down and that was that. Meanwhile, the music world kept moving without him. And that's a dimension of this that doesn't come up enough in the conversation. The window that exists for a rapper at Pooh Shiesty's level, that specific window where the momentum is building, where the features are coming in, where the industry is actively paying attention. That window does not stay open indefinitely. Careers in this space have a rhythm to them, and when that rhythm gets interrupted, it doesn't just pause and wait for you to come back. The landscape shifts. New artists emerge, attention moves, collaborations that might have happened don't happen, relationships that needed consistent presence to develop go cold. Everything that was building forward starts drifting sideways. Think about where he was in terms of trajectory. He was coming off a debut that made serious noise, had a record with Lil Durk that was getting run everywhere, had the full backing of Gucci Mane and 1017 Records, and was in a position where the next move could have defined the entire arc of his career. The second project, the one that was supposed to cement everything, that never came the way it should have, and that's not a small thing. In this industry, the sophomore project is where artists either lock in their legacy or start getting talked about in past tense. He never got that shot, at least not on the timeline it was supposed to happen on. And then there's the creative element that people don't think about enough. Music for a lot of artists isn't just a product or a revenue stream, it's how they process things, it's how they communicate what's happening internally when everything else feels like it's moving too fast. Being locked inside a federal facility, going through what Pooh Shiesty has reportedly been going through, and not having that outlet available in any real capacity, that's its own kind of weight. The ability to get in a booth and turn whatever you're carrying into something you can release into the world is gone. That matters more than the business side of it, honestly. The money and the streams can be rebuilt. The time spent not being able to create, not being able to express, not being able to do the one thing that made all of this real in the first place, that's not something you get back. His fan base has held on in a way that not every artist can count on during a prolonged absence. People who were locked in from the beginning have stayed vocal about wanting to see him come home and get back to work. That kind of loyalty is rare and it's worth something, but loyalty from the outside doesn't solve what's happening on the inside, and right now what's happening on the inside is what demands the most attention. The altercation that put him in critical condition wasn't a one-time event that's going to be forgotten and moved past smoothly. These things have ripple effects within the facility. Responses happen, dynamics shift. The environment that existed before something like that goes down is not the same environment that exists after it, and navigating that shift while already being in a vulnerable position is not a simple thing. What's also worth examining is the conversation around whether federal facilities are adequately equipped to handle the specific complications that come with housing high-profile individuals. Pooh Shiesty isn't the first famous person to run into serious problems inside a federal institution, and the pattern keeps repeating itself because the structural response to it never really changes. You get placed in general population because the system treats you as an inmate first and a public figure never. And in theory, that's how it should work. Equal treatment regardless of outside status. But equal treatment in practice means equal exposure to the same threats, the same crew politics, the same territorial dynamics that every other inmate is dealing with. Except that you're also carrying the additional weight of being recognizable, being perceived as financially resourced, and being symbolically connected to affiliations that make you a person of interest to certain groups from the moment you walk through the door. The Federal Bureau of Prisons has faced scrutiny from multiple directions for years over how it manages safety within its facilities, and cases like this one put that scrutiny back in the spotlight. The argument from people advocating for a reform is that the current system creates conditions where violence is almost predictable, where the factors that lead to these incidents are visible far in advance, and where the institutional response is consistently reactive instead of preventive. You don't need hindsight to understand that placing a well-known artist with documented affiliations into a general population that contains organized crews with opposing loyalties was going to create friction. That was readable from the outside. The question is why the people responsible for managing that situation from the inside apparently didn't intervene before it escalated to where it did. And the people closest to Pooh Shiesty have had to watch all of this unfold with very limited ability to do anything about it. His family, the people in his circle who care about him, separate from any industry context. They're on the outside looking in at a situation that keeps getting more complicated and more dangerous. The communication that's possible between inmates and people on the outside is limited and monitored. The visits are structured and restricted, and the ability to actually influence what's happening inside those walls from the outside is virtually non-existent. They can send money to his books, they can show up on visiting days, they can make noise publicly about his condition, but the day-to-day reality of what he's navigating is something they can't reach into and fix. His release date based on the timeline of his sentencing is something people have been calculating and recalculating since this whole situation started. The rap world wants him back. The people who believed in him from the early days in Memphis want to see what he does with the second chapter of all this. There's a real belief among people who follow his work closely that the music he'll make coming out of this experience is going to carry a completely different kind of weight than anything he's put out before. Going through what he's going through and coming out the other side of it, if and when that happens, gives you material and perspective that can't be manufactured or written around. It either happened to you or it didn't, and everything that comes out of that lived experience sounds different because of it, but none of that future conversation erases the reality of what's happening right now. Right now, Pooh Shiesty is inside a federal facility dealing with crew conflicts, recovering from a situation serious enough to generate critical condition reports, stuck in the impossible space between self-preservation and reputation preservation, and watching the career he was building continue to exist in a kind of suspended animation while the industry moves forward around it. The legal debate about whether the sentence fit the situation isn't resolved. The safety concerns inside the facility aren't resolved. The question of what comes out on the other side of all this, wait, for his health, for his freedom, for his music, none of it is resolved. And honestly, that unresolved tension is what makes the story feel so different from the usual rise and fall narrative that gets attached to artists who end up in legal trouble. This one doesn't have a clean ending yet. The situation is still developing, and the next update could go in any direction.